Curious to know why you're boasting of it as an advantage that Donald Trump doesn't like you, especially between two key trading partners. Shouldn't you be getting along with them? And secondly, curious to know why you've limited questions to one per media outlet, especially when you haven't been available for such a long amount of time.
We're going to take a little bit of a look at Karina Gould's presser. I've skipped over her speech for good reason, but I wanted to get to the first question that she was asked, and this was about the carbon tax. Now, as you're listening to Karina's answer, or rather not listening, check out the lady that's to the right of Karina, our right when we're looking at it, and just watch the face of instant regret as Karina starts to answer this question.
Karina, you talked about climate change in your video. We've heard, there's been a lot of discussion, obviously, about the carbon tax and what to do with it. Some other leadership contenders have said they would suggested they would scrap the consumer price. What is your position on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Look, I think what's incredibly important is that for Liberals, and quite frankly for Canadians across this country, climate change is one of the most important issues that we are facing. And one of the things that I love most about Canadians is that when there's a problem, they look for ways to solve it. And I understand that the price on pollution is something that a lot of Canadians don't feel speaks to what and how they think they can contribute and how they can make a difference. So what I am proposing is that we need to immediately cancel the increase to the price on pollution ahead of April 1st. We need to bring in measures that are going to help Canadians make the decisions that they want to make. Because Canadians are actually making those decisions already. They're already looking for ways to reduce their emissions, but sometimes it's too expensive. So we need to make sure that we're helping them buy an electric or hybrid vehicle. We're helping them reduce their their emissions in their homes and finding other ways for them to make those contributions. While at the same time, industry needs to play its part. We need to make big polluters pay, and we need to ensure that we have a comprehensive national plan to fight the climate change. This is so important. Look, we're seeing what's happening in California, and we've seen the wildfires across the country. And Canadians care about this. But let's give them the tools and the way forward to make those decisions so that they too can be part of the solution.
That's the face of instant regret, folks.
The lady in the red, yeah.
And she held her face that for her the whole answer. The whole answer. Like, this is probably somebody who showed up thinking, oh yeah, that's great. Everyone's going to, axe the carbon tax, and Karina's young. Yeah, I can get behind that. And she started answering, and she's like, oh my God, why am I standing here? Everyone's going to see me here and think I agree with all this.
Do you know why? It's because the Liberal Party has been a party without an identity for a very long time. They used to be center-left, and now they had gone so far left that most Canadians, I think including the new leadership hopefuls, have agreed that that's way too far left. We need to bring it back to center. But now you have all these people who were supporting this far left party instead of supporting, say, the NDP or the Green. They were supporting the Liberals, and now they're being told that, well, we're getting rid of the carbon tax. This tax that they've been told is necessary to stop climate change, and it's putting more money in Canadians' pockets, and blah, 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 blah. All these things we know not to be true, but that's what they were being told, and that's what they've come to believe. So I think that's what that grimace was about.
Well, it's crazy. It's just crazy, and we've been demonized for having gas guzzling vehicles. Well, it's insane.
We're in Canada. What else are we gonna have? You can't have electric cars all the time.
It's insane.
Like in the cold, I heard you guys out west are getting like negative 40 degrees this weekend. That's insane. A car battery, like an electric car battery, it's not gonna start in that. That's insane.
Well, and the fact that they're blaming climate change on the fact that California or Los Angeles had no water in their fire hydrants, and they didn't take any precautions in terms of forestry management or clearing out any of the problematic brush near all these communities. Even the insurance agencies before that were like, dudes, like this is a fire hazard waiting to happen. And they said, nope.
Well, because again, fire is a natural part of the forestry life cycle, and it's better for humans to set controlled fires than it is to just leave all the underbrush there, let it get struck by lightning, and then you've got a problem on your hands.
Well, and now there's all this stuff going out there like, oh, you know, you shouldn't be jeering celebrities for losing their homes or anything like that. Like, okay, anyone losing their homes is sad, but the fact that these celebrities literally go to Hollywood and they stand on their soapboxes and preach, you know, moral virtue, but then engage in the highest form of debauchery in all aspects of society, that's why you're not getting a lot of sympathy from anyone. Sorry. So that's all we're going to show you from Karina Gould's. Now, Freeland's is a little different. If you haven't seen Freeland's, a lot happened. A lot happened before she even got to say anything. So, yes, we're going to show you some of Freeland's stuff. Yes, you're going to hear her speak, but it's because we're going to tear it apart. So just bear with us while we finish that. So, without further ado, I got to get back to my other menu here. All right. Chrystia Freeland and her uninvited guests.
I am so...
Okay, so if you're wondering what happened there, a lot of things happened within a very short span of time, and Tanya and I were actually surprised but impressed. So what ended up happening is before Freeland spoke, like 5 other people spoke, including her kids, and then Freeland stood up, and then she started speaking, as you saw. That was the moment where she started speaking. And then someone yelled out, you know, Freeland, and I think she thought that person was cheering her on, but they were not. And some anti-Israel protesters started chanting their chants. And Freeland's whole team was ready for it, which was very, very surprising. So their strategy to deal with that was to just have everybody in the room chant Freeland to drown out the people that were trying to get attention and get notoriety by being at her press conference.
And I'll admit that was smart. Like,
very smart.
Again, I don't like Freeland, but I think you can objectively say that was a smart move, that in order to pull attention away from the protesters and try to disrupt her speech as little as possible, that was a good strategy.
So that told us a couple things. Number one, they were ready for it. And number two, they were ready for it because she knew that it was a possibility that it would happen. So that's interesting. It's very, very interesting. And you could see them being led out. But the protesters were also very, very smart because not all of them started chanting at the same time because they knew this would happen.
so glad to be here at the St. Albans Boys and Girls Club today. In my office in Ottawa, I have a beautiful painting of a Canadian flag made by kids.
Now, this next part that we're stopping at is very, very interesting because this person actually made it all the way up to her podium. So this was obviously not planned.
Well, not by Freeland's team anyway.
And yeah, and you can see the person there on the left wearing the mask. You know, they're so courageous, but they won't show their face, right? So she's standing maybe 2 feet away from Freeland, and it's not security that actually goes up to get this person. The person that gets it is actually one of Christia's speakers. He's actually, I believe, an MP from Quebec.
Yeah.
He's from Quebec. So where's your security?
They're probably busy. Like, how much security do you think you need for an event like this? It wasn't a huge venue. It was a boys and girls club. So they probably were not expecting this. They might have been expecting something. They always have security there. They want to keep the politicians protected. Christia had a lot of politicians at her event. And they just probably were not expecting so many people. And
like, I think this is, I forget this guy's name here. He's a Ukrainian. That's literally right over Christia's right shoulder, so it's to the left of her. He's a Liberal MP. He's Ukrainian. I forget his name, but this is what you get with Liberal MP men. All of them, except for this guy from Quebec. I'm sorry, but they don't really act like men.
No, they don't. They just kind of
like, why
stand
are
there
you
not sure what to do.
Like, why are you not jumping up? The guy that actually did stand up had to cross in front of 2 or 3 people in order to get to this person, in order to lead them away. And you'll watch him as he leads her away.
Even House Father's just sitting there. Come on.
Like, it's just, it's crazy.
Come on, guys. This is supposed to be your leader, and you're just kind of like, oh, yeah, somebody else will take care of it.
Right? So courageous. And now you see they snuck in. Again, these protesters had a plan, man. They had a plan.
They're always organized. Even when you and I had gone to that rally, I think it was like last October. It was the it was a Million Children March. It was the second one. It wasn't very popular because October 7th had happened like 2 weeks prior. So there weren't very many people there. But the protesters that were there belonged to a group. Like, they had flags with the communism symbol on them. It was weird. It was not grassroots at all.
So you'll see this. There's a sign behind Freeland. I didn't even notice this sign until my second screening of this. And I don't know what it says, but you can see it says Freeland. You can see it says deputy. And then I believe the last line is a grave digger, or the grave digger. So, and like, how is anybody able to like go and put up that sign? And you notice, again, look to the left of Freeland, and you see somebody there with a mask on holding this up. House Father's sitting there saying, "Oh, well, that's peculiar." Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
This is why I like conservative men so much.
Yeah, they don't put up with this crap.
Like real men.
They don't put up with this crap. But they had the distraction out front while they moved in the back. Like, they had a plan. Again, they're just sitting there with it. Christian's like, can you deal with that, you morons?
If you
Okay. Now we actually get to the point where she speaks. So This is pretty cringe. Just letting you know. So try and hold down your lunch. But this is just to illustrate. This is what you're going to get with Chrystia Freeland.
You hit us, we will hit back. And I promise, if I'm Prime Minister, our response to illegal and unjustified tariffs will be dollar for dollar retaliation. If you force our hand, we will inflict the biggest trade blow that the United States has ever endured. Canada will not escalate. But if I am Prime Minister, Canada will never back down. And then there's Pierre Poilievre. You know what the real problem with Pierre Poilievre is?
He's winning.
He's not prime minister yet? That's the real problem.
It's not that he's mean. We know that. It's not that he's a career politician. We know that. It's not that he doesn't have a plan. We know that too.
Except that he does.
The real problem with Pierre Poilievre, he is weak. Yeah.
Do you know, okay. I don't know if you guys saw this. We can't play this part because we don't want to catch a copyright strike. But when Freeland first opened the show and walked in, she had this song Man Eater playing.
Yeah, you know the one, she's a man eater. Like that one. That one.
Awful, awful. I get that it's supposed to be like a nod at Trudeau and how like she pretty much brought down the government, because if she didn't do what she did, honestly, we would probably still be sitting here waiting for Parliament to resume on the 27th.
Well, and it's also symbolic that she's going to take on Trump. She's going to take on Pierre.
Right. But when half of your voter base is male, you don't want to piss them off like that. Like, there's no need to behave like that. There's no need to have that kind of song playing, because the people that you want to support you are men too.
That's the biggest target that actually is voting not liberal.
Right. So because I mean, look at how the liberals treat them.
So you may want to reconsider your strategy.
Well, and this is the thing that liberal women don't understand. They think that they can just crap on conservative men or men in general and that they'll just still be supported and that they could do no wrong. No, that's not how it works.
Well, it's the far left tactic of I will guilt you and shame you into following me. Well, guess what? Right. That train has left the station.
I've taken my share of slings and arrows over the years. And I am still standing because, you know what? I know how to fight and I know how to win. And at this critical moment, what a privilege it is to fight for it.
This is her like big finale, everybody.
To fight for Canadians.
Everyone's like, yay.
To fight for Canada.
Hi, Ms. Freeland. Mackenzie Gray.
Yeah, so, and Tanya and I were talking about this too. When women are giving speeches, women excel when they are speaking from the heart, when they are speaking, you know, on emotional issues. That's where women really, really excel.
But when they're trying this girl boss, hard ass, whatever she's doing, it really doesn't work. It makes her sound shrill.
Yeah, it's
cringe. It really is.
And
I mean, I'm sure there's a way to give a speech like that, but it's not how she's done it.
Well, and we didn't show the really shrill moments to save your ears and, you know, to keep people actually watching. But this is the thing. When she was doing these like hype up motion moments, like her voice, it doesn't work. Like it doesn't work. That's where men excel when they're giving speeches. Like men that give like high energy speeches, they're good. Like I forget the guy's name, but the French guy, he did really well. Like he was speaking in French the entire time, but his energy was up. He was controlled. It was really, really good. But Freeland, yeah, like see, nobody really knew when to clap. And
do you know, I don't even know if it has so much to do with being male or female. I think it's more your personality and whether or not you're a good public speaker. And I think Freeland is the best public speaker out of the three front runners, but I don't think she's a good public speaker.
Right? Like when you're the best of the worst.
Yeah.
Is that really saying a lot?
Right.
Now she gets asked questions that she doesn't really have great answers to.
With global news, hoping you can answer this in both English and French. Folks close to you have told us that if you become PM, you plan to scrap the carbon tax and replace it with something else. But as early or as most recently as December 9th, you extolled the virtues of both the carbon tax and the rebate. So can you tell us over the past 41 days what has changed in your thinking that the carbon tax is not the right thing to go forward with?
Thanks for the question, Mackenzie. And the time has come for us as a government, as a country, to do two things. I think we all know we have to fight against climate change. We all get that. We need to do it for our kids. We need to do it for the planet. Liberals believe in that, and that is a fight that has to continue. But it is also the case that we need to get better at listening to Canadians and at listening to what Canadians are telling us. And we have heard very clearly from Canadians in provinces where there is a consumer-facing price on carbon that they don't like it. That's something that we have to listen to. Democracy means when people tell you something, you have to listen. And I will say, our party hasn't been good enough at that. That has to change, and I am going to change that.
I mean, I suppose she handled that as best as she could. What can you say to that? But Canadians know it's because you guys are down so far in the polls. Like, that's why you guys are all, oh, we should get rid of the consumer carbon tax. What about the industry carbon tax? That needs to go too. And Pierre Poilievre is the only one right now saying that it needs to go.
It's BS, right? It's BS, and Canadians know it. Canadians know it. Now, Chrystia Freeland, on her team, and you may have seen him earlier. He wasn't there right when she was speaking then. Chrystia Freeland has Mark Holland on her team. Mark Holland, you will remember, is the guy who stood up in question period and said that anyone who takes a day trip or a road trip in the summer with their family is setting the planet on fire.
Good news, kids. You can take a summer fun time vacation where you're locked in a car for 10 consecutive days, nonstop with no bathroom breaks, and the Conservatives have a plan for you to have that summertime fun. And the cost? Give up the future of the planet, right? Don't worry, kids, about climate change. Don't worry about taking action on the planet. Enjoy your 10 hours in the car and let the planet burn.
And also, we're torturing our children by keeping them in the car for, what was it, 10 hours without a bathroom break?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
And all of a sudden, that's fine now. And for her to say, part of democracy is listening to Canadians, lady, Canadians have been screaming about this for years. And the only reason, as Tanya said, that you're even considering this is because your party is screwed in the polls.
Yeah, because there's an election this year. If there wasn't an election this year, you guys wouldn't be concerned about this at all. You would still be pushing this narrative that 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back, blah, 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 blah.
And do you know how we know that? Because just the other day, that's what Trudeau was still saying. He was still saying it. So yeah, we know you would have kept going. So don't even start. We got to get better at listening to Canadians. How about you have to start listening to Canadians? Maybe you need to start there. And like, if I were Freeland, I would have started the speech by acknowledging the warts. That's what I would have done. I would have said, listen, I know we're down. And you know what? Let's not beat around the bush. I know why we're down. We're down because we haven't been doing our jobs. The number one job as representatives of our constituents is listening to those constituents, and we haven't been doing that.
But the government's been doing this thing where they think that, well, we know what's best for you. Even if you don't know what's best for you, we're going to do it.
Right. So
that's not what a democracy, like that doesn't happen in a democracy. Like that's not right.
But that's what she should have done. Because at least that is showing that for once she's being honest. And that gives you at least a starting ground on how to move forward. The problem is you then need to be honest about why you've been pushing this. But if you're going to run, then that's the price. The problem is she tried to dance around it, and she's like, well, I'm not going to tell you why. And I'm not going to tell you what happened. I'm just going to tell you we need to start listening to Canadians. And I'm going to try and blame it on my old boss.
Ms. Freeland, Kamal Karamali here with CTV National News. Curious to know why you're boasting of it as an advantage that Donald Trump doesn't like you, especially between two key trading partners. Shouldn't you be getting along with them? And secondly, curious to know why you've limited questions to one per media outlet, especially when you haven't been available for such a long amount of time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Look, Donald Trump doesn't like me for one simple reason. I have been fierce, resolute, and effective in defending Canada, in defending Canadians, and in defending the Canadian economy, in negotiations with the United States, in negotiations with his administration. You want someone as leader of the Liberal Party and as Prime Minister who Donald Trump is afraid of.
You really think that Donald Trump's afraid of Chrystia Freeland? I do not.
And I think she's going the way that I thought she might go, which is the whole girl boss, girl power, etc. thing.
I'm feisty.
That you should pick me because I'm a female and I'm strong. I mean, you don't see the men standing up there saying, well, you should pick me because I'm strong. You have to be strong to be a leader. Men understand that.
Well, and what are the Conservatives arguing? I'm competent.
Right.
Judge me on my competence.
Right.
Judge me on my ability to pick a good team. Judge me on my ability to understand when to delegate and when not to. And judge me on my ability to listen to Canadians, put together the mandate accordingly, and then execute. Is it any wonder that Pierre has spent the last 2 years talking to Canadians from coast to coast, north to south, east to west, and then he puts together this platform based on what these people are saying, and oh, magically that. They agree with what he's saying because it's literally what they've been telling him. Like, this is not rocket science.
Well, that's the thing I like about the Conservative Party is if you're involved in your EDA, you can bring forward your ideas and have them adopted at the what's the right word? Convention every year, or every other year rather, the National Convention. When we had interviewed Derek Gladue back in the spring in Montreal, he's the EDA president of NDG Westmount. He had said, he was explaining to us how it worked and that he had put forward a what's the correct word? Like a policy
proposal.
Yeah, policy proposal. Thank you. And he was able to get it adopted at the National Convention. So like this happens at the grassroots level. Like real people, real Conservatives within the EDA are the ones doing this work. It's not just the MPs. It's not just the party leaders. They need all of us to tell them which direction to go.
Now, I believe this is the question about the protesters.
At any other campaign launch, not at Ms. Gould, not at Mr. Carney's, why do you think you're being singled out by these protesters? And is there anything of substance that you can say to their concerns about the government's response to the war?
Thank you for the question. I do want to say I am really grateful that we live in a democracy. I am really grateful that we live in a country where everyone can express their view and where everyone has the right to protest. That is an amazing thing about Canada, and it's really important that people can disagree with each other and that everyone can state their view. Protest doesn't mean drowning out other people's voices. That is entirely unacceptable. That is not how Canadian democracy works, and I know that Canadians are not going to stand for that, and neither will I.
So, in a way, I agree with her.
Oh, her words are right.
But on the other side, it's like, you guys didn't care when there were protesters blocking roads, causing riots. You didn't care when there were protesters stopping students from trying to learn, from going to school. You guys didn't care about any of that stuff. But now that it's affecting you, it's bad. Like, you guys invited this by your inaction over the past 2.5 years. Sorry. When was that happening? 1.5 years, approximately, October 7th, right? You guys caused this, like, by your inaction, by not doing anything, by not saying anything, by not stopping anything. But, you know, a whole bunch of truckers in Ottawa, that's the protest that needs to be stopped.
Right. People have the right to protest unless you're protesting in Ottawa, in which case we'll arrest you.
Right. Unless you're protesting and getting in my way. It doesn't matter if you're getting in the way of, like, there was a driver trying to get on the, I think it was the Gardner Expressway, and
Being
had a whole bunch of
swarmed.
people swarming his vehicle. You know, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that students can't go and study at school because people are blocking the entrance to the library.
Well,
that
they're too
doesn't
afraid.
matter.
Like, they're too afraid. They're afraid they're going to get, you know, the crap kicked out of them.
Right. It only matters when it's affecting my leadership speech. Like, that's just so disgusting.
Well, and this is the thing. This is why she's saying the right things, but what? Do you think Canadians are just going to forget everything that you've done?
Yes,
Do you think,
probably.
Like, she really thinks that
She does
Canadians
think that.
are going to forget how she was almost laughing at the questions about freezing Canadians' bank accounts.
Right. Like, as far as I'm concerned, these chickens have come home to roost, and she got to see that today.
Well,
So-
and Trudeau has had this happen to him as well in restaurants and stuff like that. And it's like, what do you expect?
Right. Is it unacceptable? Yes, it is unacceptable. But when you ignore the problem for like 1.5 years almost, or let's say 1.25 years, let's be fair. When you ignore it for that length of time and then it affects you, don't expect sympathy.
Well, don't turn around and say,
What the hell is going on?
Right?
you know exactly what's going on because you caused the problem. And then you're turning around with the shocked Pikachu face saying, oh, well, this is just reprehensible. Can't allow this to happen. Canadians, in the words of Nick Nanos, Canadians aren't stupid.